Folks, Bruce is all confused right now.
I'm cutting that out in the edit. Before we start this episode, we want to say rest in peace to Paul Sawyer, a true legend of the industry. We'll be touching a little bit more on him later. Thank you very much to Valhalla Hobby for sponsoring this episode. They've been sponsoring us for quite some time now. We'll be talking about them a little bit later as well. If you want to support the people that support us, you can find them on valhallahobby.com. If you use the code TABLED at checkout, you'll get 5% off your first order over $100. Also, thank you to the people that support us on Patreon, especially to the people that joined up recently. We really appreciate you. I really hope that you enjoyed the talks that we had with Louis and Dave. And if you would like to support us, please consider patreon.com/gettingtabled.
Brought to you by some guys on the internet.
This is Getting Tabled.
With your hosts, Jason the Bruce,
You guy!
George the Yang,
I hope you're all entertained by my inaptitude.
Jason aka Major Socks.
We've been doing this and talking about various stuff. One of the stuff.
Now sit back, relax, and get tabled.
Hello, future people! Welcome to this fortnight's episode of Getting Tabled. I'm one of your hosts, Jason the Bruce. We don't have a George because George is crying because he has the man flu. He's trying to pretend like he's slept like 17 hours and is very sick. Clearly, he's just, lazy. This is just, a fact of life that we have to understand. Everybody laugh at George. But we do have somebody more important with us. We have Socks, who's definitely not a name that I've confused at all, and this is definitely the first time I've said this.
Yes, sure. We're back. It's going to be back after, as you know, we had two awesome interviews the last 2 episodes. We decided to take a break, but here we are again. We've got a lot of exciting news, so it's good to be back.
Yeah. 2 weeks in a row, and then skipping that week, it definitely helped us recharge a little. And, well, we also had funerals and stuff that needed to be attended, so...
Life happened.
Yeah, unfortunately. But we should probably talk something about this stuff.
Newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
And we're starting with something that Socks has no interest in whatsoever. Come on. Tell us about your favorite game.
Dystopian Wars. So War Cradle has announced some stuff recently over the last couple weeks that we're going to cover now for Armored Clash, but then also we have a new Alliance Salvador Squadron for Dystopian Wars. And some might say that, looking at the photos, it doesn't have paddle wheel boats, but actually they do, because they can bring the old Confederate United States, it's called the Southern United States of America, which uses paddle wheels. And so we have the Francisco class battle cruiser as well as the Salvador battle class cruiser, and they look pretty amazing, I will say.
Yeah, I do like it. It's kind of like like we had the paddle boats before, but this feels more steampunky paddle boat than the ones that we saw previously. It almost looks like a turbine. I know it's not a turbine, but it kind of reminds me of one.
I agree. I do agree with you. And so it'll be good to see some new stuff coming out for the Alliance. When I eventually will get the Alliance, because I'm just waiting for the Spanish galleon fleet to come out first. So I don't know if I'll ever get the Confederate portion of the Alliance. But we'll see. That time will tell. Moving on, though, we have aircraft, finally, for Armored Clash. And the first one we're going to bring up is the Union Corsair Fighter. So think of the World War II Corsair Fighter with the little gull wings. It looks just like that, and it looks amazing. I love the look of this. This is actually scaled up from their SRS tokens. So all the fighters that we've seen so far are actually used in Dystopian Wars on SRS tokens, which is cool that they're bringing those into this scale for Armored Clash. So
I actually really like this. I think the insignia, by the look of it, is actually detailed on. That does not look like it's been done by hand.
Right.
Which is good.
Yeah, you can definitely tell on the tail fin that is raised a little bit, and even the one right below the cockpit, you can tell it's been raised up a little bit, which is cool to see the detailing in that logo.
Yep.
There.
And it's obviously a solid canopy, so you don't have to worry about frosting up your clear plastics or anything like that.
Correct.
No, I like what they're doing here. This looks nice.
And then the next one, we have the Crown Defiance Fighter. So again, solid canopy pieces we were just talking. The logo on this one looks like it's embellished in, so you still have the roundels, but it's not raised up in some of those aspects. But I do like the rear turret as well, because a lot of World War II fighters had that, especially the bombers and torpedo bombers.
Yep.
So you can think of this one as the ground attack aircraft with that defensive turret on the back. Going in, so
yeah, no, it's nice. I think I prefer the design of the previous one, but it is still quite nice. A little bit slimmer in the canopy design, doesn't stick up quite as much. Yeah, no, it's good.
And then for the Enlightened with a scythe drone, so think of Battlestar Galactica, almost.
That's fair.
A little Scion, yep.
Actually, this is the airplanes from Transformers before they leave Cybertron.
Yeah, that would work too. Either one. But so these are more of a drone, a very small canopy, because most of the Enlightened stuff is automata anyway. So autonomous driving, piloting, even on their naval ships, and so you can kind of see that concept with the drone having a very much smaller cockpit visual.
Yeah.
But I do like the tri-wing, the two main wings, and the body being the tail fin overall as well. So
that's
cool
probably
aesthetics.
my favorite of the first three that we've seen.
And then the last of the aircraft so far is the Valkyrie fighter for the Empire, and I do like the look of this one. This one reminds me of the old P-30. Yeah, I figured you like this one. This one kind of reminds me of the P-38 Force had from World War II. They had the twin engines on the wings, but this one just has the guns on those outlet sponsons. So, but I do like the look of this one too.
I wouldn't say that any of these are weak by any means, but the last two are definitely my favorites here. Yeah.
I am excited to see the Imperium one when it's announced. It should be coming here, I would say, within the next 2 months or so, because all four of these came out within the last couple of weeks. These are all releases for this month, but we didn't cover them because of our special interviews. But I figured we did include them because our last article.
Before we do, there's just one thing I am noticing. So the first two had these molded insignia details. And the last two don't, which is genuinely disappointing. I mean, in the case of the drone, I kind of get it because it's just an automata thing anyway.
Yeah.
But that armored like the artwork of the Dasuri fighter actually shows an insignia. And it's not been painted on at all. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to do. Well, actually, if you can't freehand, it would be hard to do. I can't freehand.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of disappointed there's not something.
I agree. It would have been nice to have that embedded somehow on the model itself. Because you're absolutely right. Trying to freehand that dragon symbol would be, if you're not skilled at it, to do something that small, it'd be difficult to do.
Water transfers. I mean, that's not a product that they generally do at this point, but it's
you might be able to
pretty
find
cheap product to make.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of Armored Clash, the biggest and most exciting that I am excited for is my Imperium have finally been announced. This is
no, you don't care about this. We may as well move on. You don't care about this at all.
Oh, fine, whatever.
It's not like you've been going on about this for months, how you were waiting for it or anything.
So, for April release, the Imperium has finally come out for Armored Clash, and just like the other four factions, we'll get a main starter set that comes with the Behemoth, which is a big, huge robot there standing there in the background, and a couple of buildings for terrain, and then a whole heap of supporting infantry and other armored vehicles and smaller walkers. And as we go through these pictures,
it's a good boy.
we got this.
Look at how good the boy
Yeah.
is.
He's a good, nice looking one. The Seeger, we got the Seeger and the Faust Colossus. So 2 variants for the Colossus or the Behemoth, and then you got your command platoon for your infantry, whether it's your secondary commander or another commander or the commander of the rifle platoon itself. And then some of these heavy guns are really nice looking. The Krupp and the Luftlancer. The Luftlancer is jetpack infantry that can fly around. So another rocket gun with field gun and then some arc. So they're bringing in that Tesla.
The texture on the armor's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like the armor of the gun.
Yeah.
Like it kind of looks like it's been shoddily put together. Because there's like all these lines on the actual armament itself.
Yeah.
Like it's been welded together very poorly. I'm guessing it's just that whatever the material this is supposed to have been made from, maybe. I don't know, I just thought it was different.
It is a little different. And then you can see they're bringing in the Tesla guns with the Tesla or the Thunder Arc field gun. And that's something the Imperium is known for, even in open wars with all their Tesla weapons. And then you got a couple of bikes.
Yeah.
Tokenhoff. The Scion Verling infantry, heavy infantry. Normally, Verling weapons in dystopian wars is anti-aircraft, and so I'm wondering if this is going to be some kind of an anti-aircraft infantry with anti-aircraft primarily as their weaponry for attack or defense. And then you got the Sturmwagen transport, which is their light transport, so it doesn't have very much armament in terms of weapons, but it helps bring in troops.
I like the Sturmwagen. The Sturmwagen's nice.
Yeah, it does look nice. And you get a whole heap of, I think you get like 8 of these in the main pack that we showed you at the beginning. But then these Sturmpanzer battle tanks, there's a variety of these Panther tanks. And then there's an armored transport version of it too. So if you want a little beefier troop transport, you got those options. But I like the look of these Sturmpanzers.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no,
and
they're
then you
nice.
got the Lucifer Heavy Walkers, and then another Donnerschlag artillery walker, as well as a Sturmrees arc walker, and then some Teutonic Knights, a couple of variants of those, another couple of the bikes, Scion Verling and Scion.
Yeah, it's a tricycle.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So I am looking forward to this coming out. I will probably be getting one of the main starter faction sets as well as a smaller one. So about $200 worth of stuff April-May timeframe.
And hitting it out of the park with the artwork on this again too.
They are. The box artwork, which you can actually download that as a wallpaper.
Nice.
So if you go to warcradle.com and on their page, you go to any of the factions and you can go to as resources. You can get any of their wallpaper that they use for their box art. So it's awesome. They're allowing you to download that. So
nice.
So
up next, we are discussing what I touched on at the beginning of the episode. So for a lot of people, Paul Sawyer is one of the co-founders of Warlord Games, which is true. What newer people to the hobby probably may not be aware, unless they're paying attention to what everybody else is saying, I suppose. He was also the publisher of White Dwarf magazine for arguably its most popular period. I was talking to my housemate, Steve, about this earlier, and the first thing he brought up, and I know this isn't going to mean much to you, Sox, but a lot of the lore that he used to write for Chaos played a very big part in actually fleshing out the worlds that they were creating. It's fairly unsung, I want to say. I mean, obviously he eventually went out and he did his own thing, and I mean, nobody's ever heard of Warlord again, right? No, Warlord are really successful, so he's definitely hit his Mark, we discussed his diagnosis at some point near the end of last year, because there was a miniature that they did of him for Bolt Action, which was like a fundraising thing for his. He had terminal brain cancer.
Yes,
That's
yep.
what he's passed away from. So this isn't something that's come out of the blue. We've, to some extent, known this was coming for a while, but it doesn't make it any less of a loss, obviously.
No.
Like, this is a genuine pioneer of the industry. I don't actually know how old he was, but he's not an old man.
No.
I mean, he's certainly not a spring chicken either, but he'd be a little bit older than us. But I would be guessing 50s, but I don't know. I mean, he's obviously younger in this picture than what he would have been at the time of his passing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is hard to hear a giant of this industry losing to cancer. I mean, cancer is a nasty disease as it is. Yeah, my sister has it. My cousin actually just had surgery for brain cancer. So we've all had family that have been affected by cancer in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Friends, whoever. So
I believe it's
hard
1
to
in
see
3 people will have a connection with cancer in some way, and that's globally.
So, but to Paul and his family, we wish you the best, and also the Warlord as you guys go through this. So.
Like, this is probably going to be in the news for at least the next week or two at this point, because you know what the news cycle is like. Everybody finds out for the first time every few minutes, and so there'll be another person that's talking about it. We're probably going to... I'm not saying that we're the first. Beast of War touched on this on Tabletop, because they are arguably market leaders in this space. But we're still touching on this fairly early, so I wouldn't be surprised to hear about people discussing this for at least a few weeks at this point.
Yeah.
However, it's not the only news coming out of Warlord. We have an expansion coming out for the Into the Unknown game that we spoke about a little while ago.
That's his WizKids.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, it is too.
Warlord.
Oh, well, let's discuss that while I'm here.
Yeah. So a couple months ago we talked about Star Trek Into the Unknown, kind of new Star Wars Armada game in a sense, because Armada, as we know, is no longer being supported by Atomic Mass Games, and so WizKids has had the Star Trek IP for years, decades, if not now.
Well, they've got a couple of board games with miniatures, so yeah.
Yeah. But they have a new expansion called Rising Tensions Campaign Expansion, and some of these ships actually look pretty cool. You got the Bird of Prey, you got the Vorka, and then the Miranda and the Defiant for the Federation. So, just going through these, I do like to look at that. Bird of Prey.
Internet.
This is Getting Tabled.
Apologies for that interruption, folks.
Bruce is pushing buttons. It's okay. But they do say that the Bird of Prey does have adjustable wings, and so that's kind of cool that they've added that into the game of being able to pose it a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that, because
it's hard to do with.
Well, it's not only that. WizKids aren't exactly known for highly detailed miniatures. WizKids... I'm trying to word this in a way that it doesn't make it sound like I'm kind of having a go. Like, WizKids are a very budget-orientated business. Most of their D&D miniatures are on the lowest end of detail and scale and so forth. The Star Trek miniatures for the other board game they do is, I'm going to say, fairly average. I'm not hating on it, but they're not trying to be Games Workshop or TT. Like, they're trying to be down here to make a more affordable product. So the fact that they are doing... these are far more detailed than I would expect from WizKids.
WizKids, I agree.
I'm very surprised that they're doing posable wings. And you can actually, like, if you look at it closely, you can actually see where the seam is.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that they've done this.
And even the paint jobs, because even like you said on their D&D, some of their pre-painted D&D stuff is kind of low.
Yeah.
Ended, but the paint job on these look That's stunning because you can see the
Probably worth noting that I'm about 90% sure that this is not real product. This is definitely CGI. This is an example of what you may get. I'm not saying that doesn't mean that they won't be nice, but I would be surprised if, like, even at the height of X-Wing, it wasn't this.
Yeah.
And like I said, they are a budget-orientated company. They're not going to be going for Fantasy Flight games.
Yeah. But it's great to see some expansions coming out for Into the Unknown, beyond what they already have.
Actually, you know what I really do like about this? The very last ship, the way that they've supported it on the base is far more structurally sound than what most people are doing in this space.
Yes.
Because, I mean,
even
it's
Armada
a bigger
ships only
ship.
had one peg for their larger. ISD was supported on one flight stand.
Yeah.
Instead of when it could have probably used two. So.
Definitely going to be interesting to see what this looks like when it comes out. I don't know if there's a date on this yet.
Q3 of this year.
So it's a little while away, yeah.
A little while away, but they announced it, so I figured we'd cover it.
No, 100%. What's your favourite ship from it? I think mine's the Bird of Prey.
I have to agree. I do like the Bird of Prey. Especially since it's going to be posable a little bit, that you can use it in the game.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that's, like, really bad in this, so please don't take it that way. I mean, the Defiant's a little simple, but it's only an escort ship, so you don't expect it to be much more than that. Also, it's what it looks like in the show, so... But, I mean, they're all strong, but I think that the Bird of Prey... I mean, the bigger ship is nice too, but the Bird of Prey's... Arguably, it's always been the best-looking ship in the series.
I've always liked the Bird of Prey.
I don't think that's much of a hot take. I think that's a fairly universal opinion.
Yeah.
Let's move back to the company that I said we were going to continue talking about, though. Because they've got some feudal Japan stuff that looks really nice.
I saw this and I thought of you exactly, Bruce, because of your love for Bushido. I was like, ooh, Bruce might like this stuff. So yeah, it's feudal Japan. So this is based off their Pike and Shot Black Powder series, but using the Pike and Shot rules. And so this is their 28 mil. But yeah, we've got Samurai.
Yeah. I mean, Samurai are always awesome. Like, it's just one of those universal truths. Ninjas, pirates, samurai, zombie. Like, it's one of those things that always works. This is obviously going to be, because it's Pike and Shock, it's more historical based than it is anime based. There's nothing that says that you couldn't paint them to look anime if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And this is Wars of the Samurai, so the idea is that it's samurai versus samurai. You are going after those, like, the feudal wars in Japan is what you're aiming at here.
Yeah. Yeah, they're looking at the time period between 1467 and 1603 in terms of the time frame that you'd be playing this in. And so, but the cool thing about this is all of their starter armies and their expansions can be used for any of the three factions or four factions. I can't remember if there are. And all you do is really, they've got decals. You go down to the overlay, the more products. They've got 5 decal sheets, one for each of various clans that you can build your army around.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing that you're not, as a company, you're not detailing, for example, the next article we'll talk about, one side of a soldier and the other side of a different army. These are all universal style miniatures.
Yeah.
You're just changing decals on banners and whatnot for your various clans that you want to play as.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at historical gaming, if you're looking at something like the US Civil War, for example, it's quite literally two different countries that are fighting. So, of course, you're going to have two very different forces. Even like the English versus the French, they're two very different cultures and forces. This is essentially like most of Japan was... I'm not saying that everybody was the same. That's not what I'm saying. But even if there are differences in the styling of the armor, historically, samurai armor was a very specific style. So it does come down to aesthetics after that. So it does make it a little bit more affordable.
And then down below, we have a whole heap of various different building terrain that they have releasing as well, or already have
So
out.
this is Sarissa Precision that's doing that terrain.
Yeah.
Had previously been used in Test of Honor for some of them. You'll notice the Test of Honor logo on a few of them. I think the Pagoda is probably my favourite, personally.
Down below, they have a dragon house that's pretty awesome too. It's as you keep on going, scrolling down, it's like the very last full row, green roof with the dragons.
Oh, that'd be a nightmare to paint, though. Well, actually, no, not necessarily, but getting it to look that good would be, because you're essentially trying to do a marble effect, but with jade.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that says you have to paint it with that much detail, though.
No, the pagodas do look nice. I do agree with you. The pagodas do look nice. So
none of it really looks bad, but yeah.
I was mostly looking at the Warlord games because of this next article that we're looking at, because they are bringing out a new epic scale, and it's the American Revolution. They already have it in the 28 mil. Now they're just bringing it down to their 15 mil epic scale, which I think people will enjoy, because the American Revolution is a huge thing that I know people play in UK, and being able to play it at a much larger battle army size using the smaller scale will...
It's one of the classics of historical gaming, right?
Correct.
Hence why I used it as an example a few minutes ago. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, that was the Civil War. Never mind.
You said Civil War, but
I said Civil War, but I meant the Revolution. Yes.
So we got the starter set, which comes with both sides of the army and a George Washington special figure, and then you can do just the Continental Army or the Loyalist Army, and then they also have in here the Hessians, so the dramatic allies that the Royal Army used during the American Revolution. So
the George Washington figure is far more detailed than it has any right to be. Just like, because it's 15 mil, right? So it shouldn't have this much detail. Warlord's Epic line continues to impress.
Yeah, having two of their games, the Gettysburg, the American Civil War, and the Roman series, I'm very impressed with the detailing of their epic scales. So, and I've had I had bolt action. I sold that to a friend down in Florida, and even their 28 mil scale is amazing. But what they've done with their epic scale is impressive.
Mm. I could be wrong. I could be missing this. I don't see any evidence of the French side of this war.
The French weren't really in this one as much.
They're one of the main reasons you won the war.
It is, but it was mostly the French Navy that assisted, not really the French.
Oh,
infantry.
okay. That makes more sense then.
So the French Navy helped patrol off the coast, but then also bring over guns and ammunition to us. They weren't really used as a ground force. So. Okay,
that makes more sense. Interesting that the rulebook art is not released yet. It's a fairly reasonably priced rulebook too. It's only $35.
We're looking at
doesn't
prices.
say. It doesn't actually say what the page count or anything is yet. I also like the fact that if you just wanted to buy your half of the army, you didn't want to go in for the 2-player starter set, the Loyalist Army and the Continental Army both come with an A5 version of the rulebook, which is quite nice.
Yep.
And Warlord do this quite frequently. They try to make their games as easy a buy-in as realistically possible.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. So for those of you that are interested in this time frame and like the epic scale, you have this to look forward to, because it was just announced yesterday and they just put this all up yesterday as pre-order. So.
Yep. Nah, this is I like what they're doing here. It's going to be interesting to see what the game looks like when it comes out. I mean, I know that there are some people that are like, be like, it's not 28 mil, therefore I don't care. But if you're fighting an army, so if you're fighting a battle that's on this scale, you can't do it at 28 mil. Unless you own a mansion and you have all of the money in the world. It's just not a realistic thing to do.
Yeah,
Epic
if I
armies
wanted to
allow you to do that.
Yeah, so with my Gettysburg set that I have, they actually, in the rulebook, they actually have Pickett's Charge, which is one of the big, huge focal points of that battle. The table space you need alone at the 15 mil scale is an 8 by 12 or something like that. It's ridiculous to do.
Yeah.
And so at 20, you're absolutely right. At 28 mil, to be able to do a battle of that size, you're going to need a warehouse.
Yeah.
Really.
It's like by rights Napoleonic Wars. If you were to play that at the proper scale that it was being fought at, you're using epic models to represent an entire legion, not just the models that you see. Like you'll get one epic squad, and like this is meant to represent like 30 squads of people. It's just insane.
So yep, some great games coming out for Warlord, even though they've lost one of their co-founders. So hopefully we'll see more. We know we'll see more from Warlord in the future. I mean, they're a great company.
Yeah, I mean he's been stepped aside for a little while at this point. So
yeah.
Next up, there's this little company called Games Workshop that did a giant preview.
Is this the part where I can be a brick wall, as you mentioned in our chats earlier?
No, you're gonna pay attention to this, and you're actually going to comment and stuff, Socks.
Oh,
okay. So for those of you that are like Games Workshop are obviously, yes, they are the number one in this industry. You need to understand, if you don't listen to this very often, that Socks has never been a Games Workshop person. So a lot of what I'm about to discuss means absolutely nothing to him.
Very true.
When the Old World was first announced, one of the very big things that sold that game to a lot of people was the fact that they were going to do Cathay. Cathay, for those that you don't know, is an army that they did in the PC game when they were doing the old Warhammer game for the PC. And it was fairly well accepted and fairly well done. So people were kind of upset that this was done after the game was killed, because fantasy, Cathay was always one of those armies that was talked about and was going to happen eventually, but they didn't ever get around to it because they didn't know what they wanted to do. They knew it was supposed to be like Eastern inspired, and that's as far as they got. People have wanted to see this for decades, and I mean that quite literally. To the point where, when Old World came out, there was a fairly sizable reaction from people that were complaining about, hey, we were told Cathay's coming, where's Cathay?
Where is it?
And basically it was, hey, yeah, you need to give them time. They're releasing the easy stuff first. I have opinions on that we're not going to go into. But they are finally doing it. For those of you that know all of this, I get it, but Socks doesn't know any of this, so I'm trying to give him context as to why this is important. So, obviously, they've done this little teaser with the video that I'm just going to very briefly go through. A lot of animation. It's not until about... It's just all artwork in this video. Until right at the end, I believe, we get a tease. There we are. And we get our little tease of the armies. And they are really nice. And then we actually get our product shot. So we are going to be starting with the Grand Cathay Battalion, which is your starter set, essentially. You're getting some of these really gorgeous Jade Warriors, which, as far as standard infantry is concerned, and this is where, like, the fact that all of the rest of what they've released has largely just been old models that they've re-released, this is where we start seeing the weaknesses of that, because this looks so much better than everybody's army in the game, because it's new.
It is nice to see that the 30 Jade Warriors that you get in the starter set can be built in two different ways. You can build a unit of 2 units of 15 or 3 units of 10, which is kind of nice to be able to flex out your army depending on how you want. Yeah, you'll have a command stand, an extra command stand if you build it at the 3 sets of 10, but have that flexibility of doing 2 15s or 3 10s.
Yeah.
will suit your playstyle any way you want, really.
And the fact that you can build them as different, like quite literally, like there's different ways that you can build them as well, is quite nice. The Jade Lancers I really like as well. Like, you always love to see some some cavalry, right? And like, it was always supposed to be Eastern inspired, but this doesn't even vaguely look like anything. Like, you can't look at this and go, oh, well, yes, we know that it's Chinese or Japanese or Mongolian, or this genuinely looks like an original idea, which you can't say a lot about the old fantasy stuff, because most of that is this area of the world, but we're calling it something else. And that's not a criticism, like that is a large part of what the industry was doing at that point. But I like what they're doing here. I mean, the most boring thing is probably the cannon, because at the end of the day, it's just a cannon with a dragon on it. And that's fine. I like the old man bringing up the ammo, though. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. You got a rocket battery, so you got two
yeah.
different ways to build your artillery.
And then we get into one of the first things that people have been going on about. This dragon is awesome.
I do agree.
It still feels like it belongs in the world, because it's still like the same size and stuff of the dragons that we've seen before. But it is the Eastern-inspired dragon. It has the mustache.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really nice. The back of it is really nice too.
I was going to say, the painting on all those scales going down the tail and the hide looked really nice.
Yep. And they've gone with the turquoise, aqua, teal type color, which when you're going with orange is there's a reason that all pop culture posters use those two colors. They look really nice together. This has also been painted in a way where it shows off the model, which is important, and Games Workshop don't always achieve that very well with their early painting. But this doesn't look impossible to replicate. Getting the wings that smooth is obviously going to be a more advanced technique. But those scales, like, you could achieve that with contrast paint, and then you just highlight it up.
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism.
Yeah. Another nice thing, too, is they've got the shadowing of the underside of the wing and the lighting OSI coming from on top.
Yep. No, it's really, really well done. Next up, we have the Grand Masters. I'm just going to have a close look at one of them. You've got one on foot, one on cavalry. That banner is gorgeous. Unfortunately, by the look of it, that's hand-painted. I don't see any evidence of that being sculpted detail. I hope that I'm wrong there. I would hope that they have sculpted that in. The fact that they've painted it black and white makes it really hard to tell if there's a shadow there for a line. Yeah. So this may be sculpted, but it's impossible to see. I hope that it's not. And if it's not, I hope that it comes with a transfer for people to do it. And then we get into the very last piece, I think. Is this the last piece? No, it's not.
Star Lantern?
The Star Lantern's great. Like, lanterns are a huge piece of Eastern mythology, right? It's a blimp. It just works.
Yeah. And again, those logos, those almost look hand-painted on there as well.
The one on the actual lantern base isn't. That is definitely sculpted, the one on the base, the white one.
Correct. I'm talking about on the lantern portion of it itself.
That definitely looks like it's hand-painted. Which, I mean, I guess, like, you don't have to do that, but, I mean, this is so far beyond advanced hand-painting.
Yeah.
The
I do like the
detail is really nice.
Yeah.
There's this guy in the thing that's like, it's just so fun. Like, it's a really stupid grin.
Holding a big, huge rifle that's been wrapped around the barrel with the dragon.
Yeah.
By the muzzle itself.
Hey, Ma, look at me and my gun.
And then you got another guy with a couple of hand grenades, and he's got the stick that he's using to light the fuses of the grenades in his mouth.
Yep. Definitely a very safe way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that there's, like, Fantasy had a lot more of the silly in it than their modern games do. And what they've done is they've led into that. Because if they had have just done this really serious, which they could have done, and I'm sure it would have gotten a lot of praise still, but because they've kept some of that silliness, it feels like it belongs in Fantasy. If they hadn't have done that, I have a feeling that it would have felt like it was more Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
There's one last thing, which is a giant sentinel that they've got painted and built in two different ways. I can't think what they're called, the stone statues inside the grave, and there was thousands of them. But it's very clearly what this is inspired by. They were like it was like a stone army inside some emperor's tomb that they found.
The Terracotta Army.
Terracotta Army, thank you. Very clearly what this is inspired by.
Yeah.
It's not sculpted to look like them. It's very much its own unique thing. But I love the inspiration for this, and it works really well.
Yeah.
And if you're painting this, the jewels do need to be jade. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to paint them a different colour. They must be jade. I don't make the rules. I just make them up and spout them as law.
I do agree. The two color photos that we have here, one with the gray armor and one with the brown armor and the yellowish jewels, I do agree that the gray with the jade emeralds,
yeah,
jewels.
Actually, with the bronzy colour, the topaz emeralds do work. Yellow's a real pain to paint, though. If you're gonna make topazes, use contrast. Contrast is your friend.
Yeah. And then there's one more. There's Miao Ying, the storm dragon, down below as well.
Oh, I missed one. Oh, yeah. How could I miss, the other centerpiece of the army? Which is even more Oriental dragon than the first one was.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me a lot of a painting that I used to have as a kid that I wish I knew where it was because it was really nice. The purples and the blacks are really cool. They've obviously gone in a different direction than you would expect. For me, personally, and I know that this is just, like, there are different paintings and stuff, but I've always had the image of, like, the golden celestial dragon in my head. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably pop culture's fault, as opposed to, because I know that there were different designs and drawings and stuff.
Yeah.
This is really nice. I'm not sure what I think about the lady beside it.
I agree.
I mean, she's very pretty, and the rocks are kind of, I would hope that you can, not use the rocks. Yeah. Is that meant to be like a human form of the dragon? Oldest living daughter of the Dragon Emperor. At the head, a warrior and a sorcerer. Doesn't really say. I'm guessing that it's like an avatar type thing. They look like they're too closely bound together for them not to be linked in some way. The armor's completely different, though. No, I'm guessing it's a different character. Like, maybe this is kind of...
the pictures. Yeah, down below the other pictures, it says a warrior, a human crackling with arcane energy, and a noble dragon to strike terror in the black heart to foe. So it's
two different
separate characters.
Yeah.
But as you said, very closely linked together in terms of their abilities within the game.
It'll be interesting to see if we eventually get a version where the dragon is mounted. If it's the daughter of a goddess, I would certainly hope not. Because the daughter of a goddess should never be mounted by a lesser being. That's just my opinion, but I genuinely think that they've hit this out of the park. Which is why it's the only one of the stories from Games Workshop we're discussing today. Because we've been off for 3 weeks, and there's a lot to talk about. I could have spoken about the space puppies, which, honestly... And I think I can pretty much say this out loud because I'm pretty sure George says the same thing. His opinion was, maybe for the heroes. The rest of it doesn't do anything for me. George is also lucky where he can play his games outside of a Games Workshop store, so he has the option of using his old stuff. Games Workshop law will be, no, you must buy the new stuff now. it's just really well done. Like, they've had benefit of they can draw from the video game, obviously. That's definitely helped them. But sculpting something from a video game isn't always easy to do.
No.
It is more detailed than we see from the rest of the forces, and I've already said why. I don't feel like this is sculpted to the point of ridiculousness, though. It feels like... It certainly looks better than all of the old stuff. It wouldn't be hard. I know that people have a lot of nostalgia for some of the old stuff. And this is new, so obviously it's going to have more detail, but...
Yeah.
It's not over-detailed to the point of where it doesn't feel like it belongs. But, let's move on. We can now move on from talking about a fantasy army to instead talking about a fantasy army.
Yeah.
We're finally getting a new faction for the Warlord game from the Warcrow game from Corvus Belli, and it's the Elves. We've known that these were coming for a little while. We kind of knew what their aesthetic was going to be. In saying that, I think these look much better than I thought they were going to. I think these are gorgeous. Nice. I've kind of been waiting for like the evil elves, like the blood elf type monstrosities. But I really, really like these.
I like the archer that's kind of using the tree branch to kind of
hide
contort his
behind.
body to make him hide behind it. Exactly.
It's really, really nice. And I love, like, elves like wearing natural camouflage stuff so they blend in with their surrounding is a very old trope that you don't really see as much anymore. I like that we're kind of leaning into that more so than the 500th version of ripping off Lord of the Rings. This guy wearing all the hunting trophies is quite nice too.
Yeah. Even the one, he's got it put up on a tree trunk, it looks like, but he's using leaves as part of camouflage, and he's got a mask, long blonde hair. It's like 4 or 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7 pictures in.
Bow in one hand outstretched and kind of looking up into the sky.
No, he's holding a knife behind his back, kind of.
Oh, yep, okay. Yep. He's like a ninja.
He's using leaves as almost like a ninja, but he's using the leaves as his camouflage.
Leaf ninja
outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a leaf scarf.
Well, not just that, but he's got it on his pants, he's got it on his knees, and so it's...
Yeah. That's probably my favourite miniature of this set, personally. Oh, the next one's basically the same thing, but in a different pose. I still think I prefer the other one, though.
The second one almost looks like he's leaping down out of a tree to jump on top of someone.
But this just works, right? It works really, really nicely. This is all going to be CO cast, like the rest of the Warcrow stuff. I know not everybody's a fan of CO cast. Honestly, I haven't had a negative experience with it. It is a bit of a pain to clean. That is one of the downsides of it, but these are really nice. There's also a bundle that you can get if you're doing part of the pre-order, which comes with what we were just looking at, plus an expansion, which is Grove. Is it Curtailers? Which we'll look in a second. And this extra bonus mini that's like half leaping pose archery type thing, which is quite nice. I want to look at... there they are. I don't mind the Curtailers. They're quite nice as well.
I'm just pulling them up now myself.
So we're continuing the theme of like blending into the surroundings. Like elves in lore was always like you could always struggle to find them. In D&D, it was if you walked into an elven town, you wouldn't know about it unless they wanted you to know they were there. It was like the original type of idea. I mean, it depended on the sort of elves, I suppose, so that is not necessarily fair, but if you're going to want to do your own thing and you don't want to just feel like I made the remark of the 500th person that's ripped off Lord of the Rings, because I'm sorry, it's what most people do, Games Workshop included, then you can either go whimsical, which is not what these guys have done.
No.
They've gone with the original lore, but they've used it in a different way.
Yeah.
I really like this. I don't know if that's obvious,
like
but
this.
I really like this. For me, if I was painting them, I would be making the hair. Like, we've got this character here that's got an orange hair. We can't see some of the others, but we've seen orange hairs, brown hairs, blonde hairs. I would probably paint more towards a dirty blonde personally, but I'd be trying to paint their hair so that it looks like it blends in as well. I'd be trying to avoid things like bright white and jet black, which is what you see quite frequently in like Lord of the Rings type stuff. But if you're trying to blend in, if you're someone that's grown up blending in, it would make sense that your hair would blend in to some extent as well. I think they've hit this out of the park.
I don't. Let's go back to what you were just talking about of looking into the handbooks within D&D and see what color of hair they recommend for your various painting.
It's a good question, honestly.
Because these definitely are wood elves based off of their sculpting and where they're coming from, and so you're not going to want, as you stated, you're not going to want to see blacks or whites. You're going to want to see something that are browns or greens or something to that style that you can find within the player's handbook within D&D. Or
bonus miniature that they did, the Grand Captain exclusive, kind of feels like he belongs out of Mortal Kombat. He's got like the Sub-Zero and Scorpion V shoulder pad looking thing.
Yeah.
But of course he's from nature. No, I really like what they've done here. Like I said, I think they've hit this out of the park. Up next, I think we might just talk about this one briefly. The Chicago Way. So this is being... We actually got a preview of this a little while back that it was coming. But the Chicago Way is made by the same people that did Dead Man's Hand, which is the Wild West game that we spoke about a few months back. And this is... It's Chicago Mobs. It's quite literally, that's what it is.
During the Prohibition times within the U.S., so when alcohol was outlawed across the country, mobs came to power to try and make money and sell alcohol illegally, and that's exactly what this game is all about. I mean, you got guys with machine guns and police with machine guns, and it was kind of cool.
I've clicked on the Chicago, an offer he can't refuse 4-player starter deal. It's €110, which is really good value, really. And basically it comes with one of each faction. I mean, it comes with the rulebook, it comes with a bonus mini, which is like a reporter, and then we get like a preview of who all the things are. So we got Prohibition agents, so this is the law, essentially. We have gangsters, which is exactly what you think they are. It's got the trench coat, it's got the hat. I mean, they're all wearing hats, but... We have the Moonshiners, which look a little more rough around the edges. Again, it's what you're expecting.
Well, these are the guys that are making the alcohol in the woods.
Yep.
Illegally to then sell to the mobsters, so...
And then we have the police. So, it's kind of like, it's all sides of history at this point. So we've got the Moonshiners that are selling it to the mob. And then we have the Prohibition agents that are supporting the law. You can make the argument back and forth on that, I suppose, but it's a skirmish-sized battle. It's not going to be a huge force that you're looking at. Should be a pretty easy thing to get into, and the details on the miniatures looks quite nice. I really like what they're offering here. There's a nice, simple Chicago Way building set as well. Which, depending on how far in you want to go, you can spend anywhere from 118 to €264. There's vehicles that you can get for that as well.
They even have little sidewalks, pre-painted sidewalk sections too that you can kind of build out your city and make
Yep.
little roadways in front of your buildings.
Yeah. I really like what they're doing here. It's going to be interesting to see what this game looks like. I haven't done a deep dive into this yet, but I'm expecting that rules-wise it's probably going to be something closer to Dead Man's Hand. I kind of feel like it's going to be... No, I'm not saying it's going to be the same rules, but I have a feeling it's going to kind of have a similar theme to it. But I'll have to look into it a little bit closer. If I'm wrong on that, then that's fine. I'm just kind of having a brief look. I really like this. Like there's a one player starter set you can do for €38 as well. So and then you just pick which faction it is that you want. Which basically means that you get the game deck, the game mask, the markers, and the rulebook, and then the gang of your choice. It's a really easy buy-in if you want a small game to play with some friends, especially if that's an area. Like there's always something from history somebody's into, right? For some people it's pirates, for some people it's the Civil War, for some people it's Asian, I was going to say Sentinels, samurai. For some people it's this. For some people it's Wild West. If this is your thing, then it's a really easy way in by the look of it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's time for
Indie, definition, independent, type, slang word, jargon.
We are looking at map miniatures. This is one that I've had on our list to look at for a little while. This is... Some of what we're looking at here is really silly. We're not going to spend forever on this. I kind of want to skim through this. There's a lot more to this website. Just for Sox's benefit, if you hover over categories, the only thing we're looking at the moment is Everytown. But there's a whole world of different stuff here that you could go into. Some of which is really silly, some of which is really gory, and it's just all different stuff.
Like the scary Ronald McDonald from McDonald's from the 80s and 90s.
No. This is Burger Clown. It's totally different. I don't know what you're suggesting about.
I'm sorry.
Australians...
Who's not there to give you your hamburgers? She's there to take them away.
Damn right he is. Australians will probably remember a show called Fat Pizza, where there was a Ronald McDonald that was very gangster, creepy type look. And that's... I doubt these guys have ever seen Fat Pizza. I don't believe it's something that really went outside of the country. But it's what this feels like. It's a creepy guy in a clown costume, right? There's a couple of things that I think we've discussed previously. I love Chris on a bike. Especially if you know why they've done that miniature. It's brilliant. I mean, look, it's a fairly common saying, right? All you need is the tea.
Yeah.
Georgia and Willie is quite nice as well, which is some older folk that are protesting to go back to bed. Captain Barnabas, Barrington the Postie. I don't know what this is a reference to, but I feel like I should know what this is. It's not Postman Pat. Oh, maybe it is Postman Pat, actually. Because he's got the cat.
Yeah,
I think this is supposed to be...
mail trolley.
Maybe that is it. Maybe I'm just an idiot. There's some really, really, really silly stuff here. King Chuck is hilarious. I think that's one of their newer sculpts. I quite like Last Days Tonight, which is an old guy sitting behind a broken TV, pretending that he's a news reporter.
Yeah.
Monkey Messiah is quite good as well. It's all really, really, really silly. but it's the right type of silly. And then, of course, you have the creepiest miniature I've ever seen. It's some kids in bed sheets. It's just hilarious. It's just so much fun. Like, it's quite literally some people in bed sheets. I don't know if... I also like the fact that they've tried to paint one of them so that it was creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do this. I mean, I haven't seen anybody do a lot of this. I mean, it's not like somebody taking the mickey out of King Charles is new. We've seen that 100 times. I don't believe I've ever seen anybody do that. Ron Rolson is... I mean, in my opinion, that's supposed to be Bond. I don't know if I'm right there. It kind of feels like a Bond with that haircut. But I could be wrong. I just think this is a lot of fun. Like I said, we're only really scratching the surface on this. There's a whole heap of other stuff. Like there's a whole robotics section. The Hill People, which is all mutants, is a lot of fun. There's a whole heap of stuff here. The Davenport Gang is another one that's kind of feels like it's a similar world, but it's kind of like it's the stealingness and there's a little bit of mutants in there as well. It's almost Dread in the way it looks in the Davenport Gang. But it's... I like what Met Miniatures are doing. It's just fun. But I said we were going to move on. So...
Cream, blue, prime, paint.
Can't sucks. What have you been doing? Even though it's really obvious what you've been doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, if people haven't noticed all episode, I'm not in my usual room that I've been in the last, 10 months or so. Yeah, I don't have the window doors, the French doors that were back behind me, and as you can see, my Legos are... Yep,
that's right. Socks is renovated.
Yeah. I've renovated by moving into an entirely new house. So since October, George and Bruce know this. I've been dealing with some landlord issues. My wife and I just decided it was time to get out of there. And so we've decided to buy a house where we're at because I've got another year and a half here. So this past week, planning on moving here shortly, but within the last week, we just decided to just do it all at once. So these last couple of weeks, even though we've had a week off of recording, it's been very busy getting stuff ready for us to move. I mean, you can even see my space shuttle on my table. My table's a mess right now. Even though I have an office area again in my house, it's hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll have it all organized and I can maybe start getting this paint depending on what situation legally plays out with my landlord as we continue on with this. So
yeah, it's been a bit of a nightmare, that situation. A nightmare by their causing, but yeah, they certainly seem to be enjoying taking advantage of the law.
Yeah. So.
I said that, not him, so he can't have a go at him for me saying it.
So that's what I've been up to the last couple of weeks is getting ready to move and whatnot. So what you been up to, Bruce? I know you've been painting some stuff, and I know you're not going to show some of it off, but...
Yeah, I'm not going to show some of it off. I might do this, just very briefly. That's all you're getting?
Yep. Was that a... should I even say what it was? Prowler?
It's a Scourge ship. Well, it's a Scourge thing. So it's the Prowler. Wait, hang on. Is it the Prowler or the other one?
It's the Prowler.
It is the Prowler. It's the one that shoots acid with the big gun on the front.
Yep. It's the Prowler for Strike Team.
Yep.
I guess Strike Team or Battlezone. I think you can use it.
I think this one is both, yes. Yeah.
So.
And yes, we have moved away from our joke. We kept that going for a long time. Drop Squad Commander forever. But yeah. Speaking of, it did quite well in the end.
Yeah.
It was just short of 200k. We did actually end up unlocking some of those plastic vehicles, which was quite nice.
Yeah. So yeah, overall the Kickstarter was awesome. Just as mentioned, just short of 200k. But I think with the late pledges, we're going to be able to get over that 200K, and they may decide to go ahead and do the plastic vehicles, which I'm looking forward to because I'm getting one of each because I got the combined Kickstarter pledge.
Yeah.
When they combined them, I was very happy when they combined them. So
I've also started building, and I've primed this guy,
Very
which
nice.
is the, I can't think what he's called. Is it the long spear? I got a box here somewhere. I have started filming the unboxing for this. The lone spear, sorry. I've filmed the unboxing of this, but it won't be released for a little while because I kind of want to show off like the finished model and stuff as well. It's a model that was released 12 months ago. There's no rush on this video, so I'm kind of... I wanted to at least get it to that stage so that you can actually see the finished product. I've also been painting some undead. I've kind of gone away from how people normally paint undead. People quite frequently tend to paint their undead with like greeny colours and so forth. I've tried to go for more of a shadow type look with the darker turquoisey colours. And then I've kind of just highlighted up extremely so that it's still creepy and stuff. I think it works better on this guy than it did the other one. These are Games Workshop miniatures. I'm more mentioning that for Sox's point of view rather than the public's, because Sox won't know that, but everybody else will. I'm painting this up for a game called Death Wizards that me and Eugene want to play at some point. And I've been going to paint them for about 12 months, so I finally got around to it. They've been sitting there unpainted and built for 8 or 9 months.
yeah,
So I was priming other things, and I'm like, I primed them at the same time that I did the Prowler. So I've been doing a few things. My attention has mostly been elsewhere. My grandmother passed away, so I was actually out of the state for a few days, and then I was work's been kind of a little bit insane. That, and I've been working on some stuff for Entropy City. I've got a new card design that I think we spoke of very briefly. But I'm still kind of tweaking how I want that to look. I tried to print them out. My printer died, unfortunately. But I have this issue where the things that I print, like images that I print, I size them to a specific size and I scale it with millimeters, not with pixels, because you don't know how big a pixel is. And it still continued to print out smaller. I never found out why it was doing that. It just seems to be that that's something that printers do, I guess. But the writing on this is all insanely tiny, and I need to continue tweaking it. Because, I mean, you can read it, but anybody with older eyes is going to struggle with this. And that's not the camera that's doing that. That is how it actually looks. You got a preview of the name. And this is where people have a go at me at how stupid the name is. I don't care how stupid the name is. It's a character that I've had for a long time, that I've recycled. The name is what it is. If you don't like the name, then you can call him something else. I've had 20 years of people having a go at how stupid Zircon Wormburn is as a name. I don't care. But yeah, it's so that the heads got blocked because I wasn't using my printer enough, which when I bought my printer, I knew I had to use the printer frequently to avoid that happening. It did have a clean head function, and I did manage to get it better than it was, but I couldn't get it to unblock the blue, and I had to turf it, unfortunately. So at some point, I will need to buy a new printer. I'm going to put it off at this stage until I'm printing things on a regular basis again.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go down to Officeworks and I can print things, which is a pain, and it's certainly more expensive to do that, but I don't think I'm printing stuff at home frequently enough to actually make my money back on it.
Yeah.
When I get to a point where I'm actively printing things on a regular basis for playtesting things a few times a week or 5 or 6 times a month, then I think it's a 3-minute drive down there, and then I just need to, yeah. My next attempt with this, I've redone these to the size of a standard photo, so that and I'm going to try and print it on actual photo paper as photos.
Okay.
So that it's 100% in scale, and I don't have this issue of... I don't know why printers do this, because it seems to be all printers that do this, where they... Like, you can choose for it to print at full size rather than it shrinking it down. But that's what I did with these, and it still came off smaller. Like, I measured this to make sure it was the right size, and it's still massively out.
Yeah,
I don't...
You can definitely tell.
If the audience out there knows what's causing this, I would love for you to tell me how stupid I am, provided you tell me how I fix it. Because I really, really would like to know how to fix this. Printing it on photo paper is obviously going to be more expensive, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. Otherwise, yeah, a few more tweaks to the rules. I have also recently unboxed Night Shift, which is a game that we spoke of around this time last year. It was a strippers game where you're literally playing as the strippers in the club, trying to make money from the people at tables and stuff. That will be... it's on our Patreon now. The video will not be going live this week. It'll be next week. Just because I'm trying to space things out. But I really, really like what I'm saying. This is... I've said in the video that I think this is a game that everybody should play at least once. So... Now you don't need to watch the video because I've told you what I think. No, watch the video. It's well worth it. Only thing I will say is that yellow plastic really doesn't show up on camera very well. But I already knew that.
Hopefully, I mean, with me getting my Imperium in a month or month and a half or so, for Armor Clash, I'll have that to unbox. But then Company Heroes 2nd Edition should be coming out July, August timeframe as well. So I'll have 2 big new games to unbox this summer.
I tell a lie. I do have something else. I've done some more bases for my Infinity stuff.
Nice.
I still need to highlight this guy up, but the last time you saw that guy, he wasn't based.
No, that looked nice.
I'm really happy with that. All right. I think it's time to move on.
Talk nerdy to me.
Might be a bit of a short topic, this one. I kind of had this thought this morning. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when it comes to us trying to decide, like, whenever we come across a game and decide that we want to play it, it's kind of really easy for us because we kind of expose ourselves to everything as it comes out. It's more like, in my case, I mean, you're better at this than I am. In my case, it's more of an issue of I need to stop buying things because I want this and I want that and I want this, because I don't get around to playing half the stuff that I buy. You only tend to buy stuff that you're going to play. Mostly. I don't know if you've actually played your Civil War stuff yet. Or Gettysburg.
I've played my Civil War.
Okay.
I've put enough together that I could, I mean, not to the point where I've glued them all on the base because of how small the epic scale is. I'm wanting to do speed paint across the sprues.
Yeah.
That way, because they're on the basing itself, if you got one line in front and one line in back, it's gonna be hard to paint both lines if I glue them to the base. And so you almost need to put one line on the base and one line keep it on the sprue so you can paint them separately and then glue them together. So I've done that with about half of my Gettysburg army. So, but since then I haven't touched them because of moving around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'm wanting to and then buying Hannibal, expanding into Dystopian Wars, getting Armor Clash next month.
So you've heard him admit it here first, folks. He's never going to play Gettysburg, and he's never going to finish painting them. So he should sell it tomorrow.
No. My goal is actually, I know I said this at the beginning of the school, at the year as one of my hobby goals was to try and paint, find one night a week to paint. Unfortunately, the landlord issues have been taking longer than I was expecting, and so
that you had school.
I'm in school right now, and so I'll graduate here in a couple months. So I think I'll be able to find 1 night a week, where I'm not writing papers or whatever.
Yeah.
Dedicate. I mean, because my hobby stand is our hobby station is back up on this side of the camera again, and so my goal is to try and get at least one of my games fully painted before I move out of here, if not one and a half. Which two games? I don't know. It may be my Hannibal set, it may be my Armor Clash stuff, it may be my Dystopian Wars. I haven't decided what.
Surely
yet, but I
Dystopian
want-
Wars being finished would be easier. You're most of the way through one of those sets
I
already.
am most of the way. Yeah, I've got most of my Imperium done. It's mostly my Sultanate that I haven't really started yet. So it'd be my restarting my Sultanate, which I've started my flyers, at least in terms of basing them.
Mhm.
But I just need to do the detailing for my flyers for my Sultanate, but then the rest of the faction. So, but that's not what our topic is. Our topic is choosing a new game, and it's kind of why you mentioned the other 3 games that I've bought recently. That
The reason I brought this up is, like, for us, I think it's a little, like, because I don't want to say accidentally, but as a result of having the podcast, we get exposed to new things and get tempted by new things quite frequently. More frequently
Yes.
than most. But
I think that's
if
also
you...
part of. I think that's also part because we go out and look for news articles and
Oh, I
new stuff
certainly
that's
do.
coming out within the industry.
Yeah.
And so that exposes us in that way too.
Like, it wouldn't be the first time that I've made a suggestion of, like, there are a lot of people that play Games Workshop stuff. There's a very large percentage of that audience that plays those games despite the fact that they don't really enjoy them. Nothing is more popular amongst the Warhammer 40k community than moaning about Warhammer 40k. And some of that is because everybody thinks that they can do a better job themselves. Some of it is because it's probably not the right game for them. And that's okay. And to be fair, if you're playing a game that's not for you, that's not your fault. And that's not Games Workshop's fault either. It just probably means that you're playing the game that isn't right for you. You don't have to like everything, even if all of your friends do. A lot of people love watching The Room, despite how much of a bad movie it is. I don't like watching The Room. It's a garbage movie. I don't care how funny the garbage makes it. It doesn't mean that I like it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I felt with Flames of War. Flames of War is the first miniatures game I ever got into. And I love the historical. That's kind of where I started. That's kind of where my passion is with historical stuff. But the I go, you go, I go, you go is what turned me away from that.
Yeah.
And I like the ability to...
Which is tradition in wargaming. That is the way that wargaming has always worked. Well, not
Absolutely,
always, but
I
it's
agree.
generally how it... It's generally the way that it's always
Generally
linked.
how it goes. But even my Hannibal, my Gettysburg set is kind of that way. But they've added rules to the game where you've got to roll command rolls for your various units to see if they actually activate that turn. And so yes, it's a you go, I go, but this command roll of, is your commander actually going to do a correct order, and is your unit going to listen to the order, makes it feel like you don't just move your entire army all at once because of that randomness. But picking up bolt action back when I was stationed in Kansas, I love that game because yes, it's a larger scale World War II game, as we know from Warlord Games, but that randomness of drawing from the dice bag of who goes next and what, I could have 3 or 4 units go, and then I may be waiting because I don't have many dice in the pool anymore to pull from. I love that randomness effect.
Yeah. The reason I really like... I have never played bolt action, so this is in theory. The reason I really like that, in theory, is because it actually simulates war quite well. War is, oddly enough, very chaotic. It's kind of the nature of the beast. But because of the way that tends to work, you will find that that's a mechanic that you will either love or you will hate. There is very little middle ground there. And if it's not for you, that's okay. So the way I kind of worded this was, like Sock said, it's choosing a new game. When, why, what, etc. why we've kind of covered at this point, because it's
Yeah.
not every game has to be for you. I use Games Workshop as an example just purely because, I mean, to be fair, it's the most widely played thing and probably the thing people complain about the most. And I mean this quite literally. It doesn't matter what side of Games Workshop it is. And honestly, it does. The people that love the game complain about it almost as much as the people that don't. And to some extent, it doesn't matter how many times people get told, try playing something else then. It's going to continue happening. Because for some people, wargaming is Games Workshop and there is nothing else.
Yeah.
Even if there are other people that are playing it, it's not Games Workshop, therefore I'm not interested. That's fine, but it's worth at least having the conversation. Arguably, even if your friends aren't interested in trying something else. Because I guarantee you will find someone that'll be interested in playing a game every now and then. Even if it means that you have to buy the 2-player starter set and they use the other half of your starter set box. That's how you get people into other things.
Yep.
The main thought was, if you want to play something else, how do you do it? And I think realistically, for most people, it's going onto Beasts of War or on Tabletop and looking at what the news stories are, what other people are playing. They have a game section on the website where you can just look at the name of games. So you could look up Infinity but if you don't know what these games are, you can just go looking at things alphabetically and having a look, or go through the stories and just see what people, and you just look at something that jumps out at you.
Yeah.
Or you watch podcasts that, like us, or like Guerrilla Miniature Games, The Weekender from Beasts of War. I would argue, try to look at the spaces that talk about the indie section of the business, even if they don't refer to it like that. Like, watch a Malifaux playtest. Actually try to find examples of how games work.
Yeah.
Go on to Twitch and go on to the Warhammer section. Shockingly, people actually do stuff in the Warhammer section that's not Warhammer, because there's no war game section. This is another thing that people complain about all the time, is that, well, if it's not Warhammer, it shouldn't be in the Warhammer section. It should be art, but then you don't get people looking at it that are looking for miniature stuff. But like, you will find people painting Moonstone in there or painting other stuff. I would argue there's generally two types of people in this industry. There's people that get into something because of three: aesthetics, lore, it's those two generally, or mechanics. But I would argue that, generally speaking, most people come into games for reasons other than mechanics generally. I mean, I love Malifaux, and I love it because of the mechanics. It's not why I picked it up. Mm-hmm. I don't buy a Spider-Man comic book because it's a young character that could be anybody. I buy it because, ooh, look, it's a really pretty picture of Spider-Man. When I'm a kid, I guess. I mean, these days I would pick it up because it's a Spider-Man. Well, I haven't bought a comic book for years, but if I was to buy a comic book, it's because I know who the character is and I'm interested in what's happening now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a different angle for that? No, you came from historics, right? So,
yeah. So you also got to if you're wanting to get into this industry and pick up a game, you also got to find something that you are drawn to, not just the lore and the aesthetics. If you have no passion of sci-fi whatsoever and you love historicals like I did to begin with, you're not going to want to pick up a Games Workshop game at all. You're going to go after your Warlord, your primarily I would say Warlord Games is one of the best historical game manufacturers out there because of Black Powder, because of Bolt Action, because of
Spike and
some of their others.
Pike and Shield.
Pike and Shot. Absolutely. Black Seas. And so that's another reason. But then also, like you said, look at what's in your community too. That's one of the reasons why I got into Flings of War, because I had huge Flames of War community in the store that I started at. The players also did Warhammer, but every Friday night they're doing Flames of War, and I was just like, well, that sounds fun. So, but I mean, with me getting into dystopian wars, I mean, yeah, it's steampunk sci-fi, but I absolutely love it, and I only got into it because a guy in the local area had some old Spartan era stuff, but then you guys bought me the starter set. I've loved it ever since.
Yeah.
And I'm a war host and trying to do demos when I can.
You had shown interest in it before we bought it for you, though.
You're right. You're absolutely right. When we started showing on the channel, I started liking it, and so you're absolutely right.
I think, generally speaking, it's the aesthetics that's generally the kicker for most people.
I agree.
Controversial opinion, potentially. If you want to try something else, and there's nobody around you that's really playing other things, if you find a board game with decent miniatures in it that jumps out at you, start there. It's going to be a cheaper buy-in for starters, and it's a lot easier to get people playing something else that's a game in a box, because it takes them less effort, than it is to play a full-on war game that they have no idea how it works. And hey, look, you know what? Not everybody enjoys teaching things, board games included, but it's a lot easier to teach somebody how to play a board game than it is to teach somebody how to play a war game.
A miniature.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also mentioned it earlier too, is buying a 2-player starter set is and cheap. Yeah, I mean, Drop Zone Commander have great 2-player starter sets that are cheap.
Yeah.
Drop Fleet as well. Even the Dystopian War stuff, and that are great ways that if you have you or a buddy that may be interested in it, or you just buy it yourself and you just take it down to the local game store that you have and say, set up a demo table on a Saturday or whatever your free day is, or when you know the store has a lot of people coming into the store, that's the best time to set something up and draw some attention to see if people are wanting to play and learn with you as you go start this journey.
Another side of this is, like, if I keep on using Games Workshop as an example, right? It's not because I'm hating on Games Workshop. It's just the most obvious example. If you're someone that's tired of, like, if you've tried really hard with 40k, or Age of Sigmar, or Old World, and it's just not grabbing you, or something about it is missing for you that everybody else understands, and it's not for you, that's fine. If you have no idea where else to start with a skirmish game. Don't immediately jump into another mass battle game, because this is where your giant wall of plastic and pile of shame comes from, because if you don't get a chance to really play, like, if you have to buy a huge amount of stuff to get into a game, and you kind of get halfway through and was like, I don't know if this is for me, then you've got 2 games that you've just bought into that you're not sure if you want to play or not. If you start with a skirmish game, let's use Conquest as an example. That's a rule set where the miniatures can work with 2 separate games. Hey, at some point next year, Strike Team and Battle Zone will be that too. You can start with the smaller game, see if this is something for you, and if it is, like, you've only had to paint up 2 squads and a leader, I think, for the skirmish version of Conquest, that its name escapes me right now. But then you know that it works, and then you can just expand.
Yeah.
It's much easier buy-in. Also, skirmish-sized games, I would argue, is the best part of this industry right now. Like, mass battle games are fun, and I'm not saying that they're not, but there's a lot more unique mechanics in skirmish games. And just because you're only playing with 5 or 10 miniatures doesn't mean that you're playing a game for 30 minutes, although you do with some of them.
Yes.
Or that it's a very shallow game. Some of them are deeper than mass battle. Like Infinity, for example, is arguably just as complicated as 40k.
Yes.
But it's a smoother game to play. It gets smoother and smoother with every generation. If you haven't touched Infinity and you're generally into, like, your anime type aesthetics, it's probably something that would jump out at you. Pick the faction that jumps out at you the most. And unlike, like, you used the example earlier of I go, you go. In Infinity, there's always a chance to react to something. So it
Yep.
always feels like you're doing something. You don't have this issue of, now I sit here for 45 minutes waiting for me to do something. Oh, I get to make a couple of defense rolls and I take things off the table. By the time I get to have another turn, I'm bored.
Or have lost your army.
Yeah. Conquest is, it's a fantasy game, but Conquest is mass battle, but the units activate individually. So you don't quite have that issue. Bolt action is kind of the same, where the units activate individually, but it has that randomness aspect.
I would even go to say battle, drop zone and drop fleet. I love the stacking of cards. I know it's different now with drop fleet 2.0, but I love that.
I like the change, honestly. I haven't played it, but I like the fact that they changed it.
I haven't played it too, but I like how it was introduced at the beginning of writing your strat ratings on the cards and then deciding how you want your battle groups to go.
Yep.
But I know that's been changed with the 2.0, and I do like those changes. But just that aesthetic of strategically trying to choose which battle group is going to activate at the right time for you compared to your opponent trying to do the same thing was also what drew me into drop fleet. So.
Yeah. I mean, if you've never looked outside of the Games Workshop bubble, and this is...
Absolutely.
I keep on feeling like I'm hating on Games Workshop. It's not what I'm doing. One of the marketing things that they do extremely well, especially to new people, because Games Workshop's focus is on the new customer. When I tell you that they don't care about the existing customer, I'm not being smart or snarky. I mean this quite literally. Their marketing campaign, they describe it as a trumpet, and it's trying to funnel everybody in. Once they're in, they try to keep them inside the bubble. But after a few years, if somebody drops out, they've dropped out. That's fine. Because at that point, if they're going to come back, they will come back by themselves. They don't have to market to this person, because if they're already a Games Workshop person, they're already in. They concentrate completely on the new player. It's not fair to say that they don't care about their existing fan base. They do. But their marketing is not aimed at the existing player base. It's the reason why all of their paints are designed, and I mean all of them, are designed to be easier out of the bottle, but hey, maybe probably aren't the best long term. I'm not saying Games Workshop paints are bad, but there are some certain things that people that have been in the hobby for a long time really don't like. The fact that they dry out, for example, because they're designed to be easy to use for the new player. Contrast is for the same thing. But they don't worry about the rest of this. If somebody goes and looks at the indie scene, if you're stuck inside that bubble, which is fine if it's catering to you, but if that bubble just, I'm not saying that 40k, Age of Sigmar, etc. is bad. But for a lot of people, it just doesn't hit the mark. It's why we have people drop out of the industry all the time. Before you drop out, have a look at the indie scene. Lord knows they can use with the business. 85% on average is what Games Workshop have in the industry. It's insane how much of a capture they have on the market. But also, I've been saying this for years, what's out here is actually more interesting. Not just from an aesthetic point of view, but Games Workshop don't write rules that well. They're better at it than they used to be, and I'm not saying the game rules are bad. There's far better rules out here. Far better rules out here. All you need to do is find the one that you're interested in. If that's Wild West, you have several options. If it's sci-fi or fantasy, you have all of the options in the world. You just need to find the one that jumps out at you.
Yeah. You want historicals? There's loads of historicals out there. Loads. And they're keep on getting better and new additions. I mean, the Warlord's Epic is all historical. I mean, Warlord primarily deals with historical as it is, but I mean, and that's another thing too, is if you like the mass battle games, you don't have to stick with the 28 mil because you're not going to get the huge armies that you can with epic scale. So if you like doing the huge Pickett's charge of the Gettysburg campaign, or Napoleon at Waterloo, or whatever, Hannibal and Caesar within the Roman time frame, those epic scales are for, can fit your play style too as well. So because you can do those huge mass armies.
The only thing I haven't touched on is when, right? I would argue that you should have started doing this yesterday.
Yeah.
look at the industry all the time. Even if you're not really if you enjoy 40k, because again, it's just an easy example, that's fine. But you may actually have. We all get to a point where we played a game too much and we need a refresher. If you need a refresher, just have a look around. It doesn't matter if it's a board game or it's a skirmish game. Some people go to Kill Team and that is their refresher. Or they jump back and forth from Age of Sigmar to 40k. I don't know how people do that. It's a lot of miniatures to go back and forth between. But just when, there is no wrong when. If you found the game that you're interested in, you want to play bolt action because you know what? World War II is something you've always found really interested in. Okay. Now I need people to play with. Okay. Find the bolt action Facebook group. Just ask, is there anybody in the Victorian area that plays bolt action? Is there anybody in Florida that plays bolt action? So on and so forth. When you're searching... Oh, yeah, 100%. If you find a Facebook group that's generally within your area, join it. If you're asked for... most Facebook groups will have a reason why you need to join. Interested in playing, trying to find players. Otherwise, hey, I found a new game. Is anybody interested in having a go? Hey, I bought the Bolt Action starter set. I've painted these up. Does anybody want to play whichever faction? It doesn't matter. If you're going to do that,
doesn't matter.
If you're going to do that, you're probably going to have to let them pick which faction they want to play as, just for the record. But you should also probably play both because then you know what you enjoy.
Yeah,
you would be surprised how many, especially people that's been in the industry for a while. Most people would be willing to try other things. Even if they're not really interested in playing it long term, you may actually be the reason that they do start looking elsewhere.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is a lot of us in this community, for those of you that are listening and may not be in it yet, a lot of us in this community are willing to teach you. I have. Every single one of my games has at least 2 factions. And that's for a reason. And so if someone reaches out to me, I can say, hey, if I'm looking for a game, maybe anybody there to play, I have 2 factions or 2 armies for every single one of my games that I can teach you.
Yep.
And most other people in this industry or this community are that way.
And if you're looking around and you hear of somebody that, hey, is maybe working on something, me, for example, I'm working on a game called Entropy City. Hey, maybe you can reach out and go, hey, are you playtesting yet? Or are you ready? I had this question several times. Before I was anywhere near ready to playtest. I was like, not yet, but I'd be interested. And I have been playtesting for some time now. Not everybody that's asked has had a chance to play, and I do apologise for that. We will get games at some point. But it's always an opportunity. Then you actually feel like you're part of something too. You may actually find that it may be something that you're interested in doing. If you have an idea, just start writing it down. Take it from somebody that took 8 years before he actually started doing that. There's not a bad time to start doing it. Just start writing down your ideas. You may not have a game instantly, but you will piece it together at some point. It's worth it. Even if you write down your ideas for a game and you steal all of your ideas, if you just want to skin 40k, you're not interested in sci-fi, but you've got this really cool idea, just try it, see if it works. And on that subject, if you're playing a game and the factions don't really jump out at you, just make it your own faction. It's fine. Yeah. If you want to play bolt action, but you're not really into history, make it pop culture. then you can giggle on the inside at the people that don't like the fact that you've painted them up to be Marvel superheroes. It's really fun. Maybe laugh on the inside quietly, but it is really fun to laugh at the historical people when you've painted the buttons the wrong colour. I'm taunting the historical players again.
I know you are. Thanks. With my one book that's sitting right back there for painting guides for me.
We should do...
Tournaments, demos, conventions, that kind of stuff.
Alright. Adepticon is quite literally happening right now, so I don't know why I'm mentioning it, but Adepticon is quite literally happening right now. To all of you out there that are at Adepticon, I am jealous of you and I hate you forever. Not really.
Yes.
I am jealous.
No, we don't hate you. We're just jealous. We are jealous.
Shay.
Yes.
Because Shay is there.
Yep.
Did you see what he got in his goodie bag? There's a lot of money in that goodie bag.
I did not see the goodie bag. I'll have to go back and look at the
He got the
pictures.
Skaven Tide box in it, which is not cheap.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Salute is happening in 2 weeks, 12th of April at the London Excel Centre. You can buy the Strike Team promo miniatures there. So, this, for example. There is a painting competition that is being run by Hearns Hobbies. I actually heard about this from a friend. So it's being run by both Hearns Hobbies and Hobbyman. For those that don't know, it's the same company. It's just 2 different stores. I could be wrong. I think the Hobbyman is going to be rebranded at some point. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. I just kind of get that impression. But if you look at Hearns Hobbies' Facebook page, where is it? There it is. They have a big advertisement going on. If I zoom in, you might even be able to scan the little QR code there. Entries to the Hobbyman on April 30th. So you can look at it through both stores, but it's the Hobbyman store that actually has the competition running. That is where you will need to get your miniature actually done. There's 2 categories. There's specifically a Cromlech category, and then there's a general wargaming category as well. So if you want to do it, hey, just do it. It'll be interesting. We also have... I need to go back. There we are. We also have ArcFest coming up from the 3rd and 4th of May. It's at the Sandown Racecourse in Melbourne, featuring 40k, Age of Sigmar, Middle-earth, Old World, Infinity, Shatterpoint, and the Arc Open. The Arc Open is a painting competition, so there's another one for you. Port Play is a role-playing game event that's taking place at the St Kilda Town Hall that same weekend. It's being run by a local group. This is a new event. This is the first year they're doing it. So if you're interested in role-playing games and you're in the Victorian area, I'd probably suggest that's something you need to check out. It's not just going to be Dungeons and Dragons. It's a lot of other stuff as well. Gen Con is happening from the 31st of July until the 3rd of August at the Indiana Convention Centre. So it's Indianapolis Convention Centre. And PAX Australia is taking place at the MCEC, Melbourne Convention and Entertainment Centre, from the 10th until the 12th of October. Hey, I'm not celebrating my birthday there this year. I can actually do something.
Oh.
No, it's fine.
I know.
I have concerns about PAX Australia this year. It looks like they might be reducing the tabletop side of it. I'm really hoping I'm wrong on this, but there's been a couple of people already that's kind of come up and said, hey, we're not going to be at PAX this year, we're sorry, but there was no space for us. And that space was being used by sponsors for the event. I really hope I'm wrong on this. The feeling from the community tends to be that the tabletop area is shrinking again, which is really disappointing because from everything I've seen, the feedback has been that they want more of it, not less of it. I think the problem is that the video game people are paying more, which really frustrates me. I really hope I'm wrong on this. But as someone that pretty much only goes there, well, not only, but I spend 70 to
Primarily.
80% of my time in that tabletop area. It's why I'm there. If that's disappearing, I'm so not interested in PAX. Most of the video game section, you can find online for free. You don't need to go to the event for it.
Yep.
I might spend more time at panels this year. I should spend more time at panels anyway. I really hope I'm wrong on this, but the problem is that we won't really know until we get closer to the event, because at this point the floor plan's not released. But if the feeling in the community is right, I'm going to be very upset. Thank you again to Valhalla Hobbies. Valhalla Hobbies have been sponsoring us for quite some time. They have a huge range of stuff in their store. They're based in Verona, Wisconsin. I might have said that twice now. They have all of your Games Workshop stuff. They have all of your popular areas, but they have a huge niche area in the industry as well. It's one of the reasons why they're connected with us. They have all of your Warlord stuff. They have your War Cradle stuff. They have Bushido. They have TT Combat. Like they have a huge range. If you're one of these people that's trying to find a new game, Valhalla Hobby would be a great place to go to find not just some miniatures that jump out at you. Have a look at their website. There will be something.
Yeah.
But probably a community to play it with as well. Because, hey, here's a secret. A store won't stock miniatures unless there's people to buy them.
It's true.
In saying that, just because people aren't selling them near you doesn't mean that there aren't people playing it. You can buy things online. You can find them at valhallahobby.com. I mentioned this earlier, but if you use the code TABLED at checkout, you get 5% off your first order over $100. We get no kickback from that. This is not something that we make money from. They do sponsor us, but we make no kickback from your sales. But it does show them that you have gone to them because of our referral, and it's a way of them to keep track of it. So, thank you for supporting the people that support us. Speaking of people that support us, our Patreon is awesome. We really appreciate our Patreon members. There's specific areas in our Discord where we can chat with them. They could actually listen to us while we record if they want to. They're not here today, probably because they're at Adepticon, the bastards.
Yes. Shay.
I know Shay's there. I don't think JP's there. I could be wrong.
I don't know if JP's there either.
JP made a comment earlier in the week about how it feels weird for it not to be in Chicago.
Well,
but I don't
not
remember
just that,
if that's...
Was it JP that said he had some issues with some of the storms that went by his house a couple weeks ago?
Might be.
I can't remember. But
I mean, they're both in that same area.
Yeah, and I think one of them said that or maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Anyways.
So yeah, if you want to support us, for $2 a month, you get early access to all of the video content that we do. Our Patreon members will see the video version of this podcast today, whereas the rest of the world won't see it until Thursday. Also, the video of Night Shift that I've done is already up on our Patreon. The rest of the world won't see that till next week. The unboxings that I did for Strike Team, I filmed those like 8 months ago. Sorry, no, I filmed one of them like 8 months ago. The other one was like a week before it was released. And they'd been up there for quite a while. Because I kind of learnt over time that I shouldn't release everything all at once. I should spread it out. Because I can't afford to buy miniatures all the time. And it means that you're helping us and you help us keep the lights on. And it's really, really appreciated. We're very, very grateful for that. You can find us at gettingtabled.com. If there's any story that you've enjoyed or you want to look into, then you will find the links to that story and to the news articles in the description on the website. Where else can people find us, Socks?
All over the place. So our Patreon, as Bruce mentioned, is patreon.com/gettingtabled. Find us on facebook.com/gettingtabled. That's where we're most active. And then youtube.com/gettingtabled. Please subscribe and like us there. If you want to email us about questions that you may have or topics that you want us to discuss, you can email us at gettingtabled@gmail.com. And then our Discord, Bruce mentioned, we have all sorts of channels also within our Discord that that are open for discussions about any game out there. I mean, we're even adding channels within there sometimes too.
Yep.
Well.
I mean, look, the most active channel there is definitely the Patreon chat. But there's there's conversations like there's Bushido, there's board games, there's Conquest, the Dropverse, Dystopian Wars. There's an Entropy City channel. There's a whole heap of stuff.
Star Wars games, even though I don't play them anymore, I'm happy to discuss stuff from my time playing them because I know my knowledge of them. Back to where you can find us, X/Twitter is at Getting Tabled, as well as Instagram, Blusky, Threads, and Reddit are Getting Tabled, r/Getting Tabled. And then Toy Reel for Bruce's other hobby that he does is youtube.com/Toy Reel. Yep.
Or it's at Toy Reel on Instagram as well, which is action figures. So if you've got an interest in that area, there's a whole huge. We've got round table discussions. We have interviews with people. There's quite a bit of content there. Thank you very much, Socks.
Yep, it's been great doing this again.
George smells funny and is just a coward for not turning up.
With his man flu.
Yep. As much as we're taunting him, man flu, ironically, is actually a real thing. We get taught about it all the time, right? But it's a scientifically proven thing because men don't tend to admit that they're sick until it's too late. So it's also our own fault that we end up in that situation.
Yes. But anyway, we hope George feels better soon in his no man land of Wyoming.
George.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Love you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening to Getting Tabled. Music used in this podcast was created by Eric Matyas at soundimage.org.
George should paint all of his dots and stop being lazy.